This video is sponsored by Squarespace.
Hello Internet, Taliesin here, and today we are talking the upcoming Legion remix. We are talking Blizzard's recent decision that the Mage Tower artifact appearances won't be available as rewards to players in Legion remix, and we are talking all the fallout from that decision. Players are complaining about FOMO, about prestige, about Blizzard's very weirdly inconsistent approach to currently available achievement rewards, and exactly how they need to change their minds on this to make everyone happy. It's a very specific instance which speaks to a much wider issue with World of Warcraft in general, and it has got the player base fuming, absolutely tampin' mush. So join us as we ask, are Blizzard right to keep the Mage Tower appearances off the Legion remix table? Okay, go. Remix. Back in the winter of 2023, Blizzard released their roadmap for retail WoW for the following year, and while the community chatted excitedly about the alpha and the release of the next expansion, The War Within, and speculated wildly about what that cryptic Jolly Roger and 10.2.6 could mean, flying relatively under the radar was Time Running, Pandemonium, later revealed and renamed as Remix Mists of Pandaria, an amped up and overpowered retread of the Mists of Pandaria expansion that, as well as being a chance for players to re-experience the magic of questing and dungeoning and raiding and scenarioing in one of WoW's most beloved expansions, was more importantly a leveling and collecting extravaganza. As well as new rewards created for the event, just about every mount, pet, toy, weapon, and armor set from that expansion was available to flat out buy from vendors for the Remix Bronze currency during Remix. Super rare and sought after items like the Snail Pet, the Dark Shaman set, all of the World Boss mounts, and the Tusks of Manaroth were all on vendors. Personally, I had over 1,000 Garrosh kills over a couple of years of dedicated Tusks farming with no luck at all. Within a couple of weeks of Remix starting, I moseyed on up to a Bronze Dragon shopkeeper with my Mountains of Bronze and walked away the proud owner of every Orc transmog I would ever use ever again. And did it feel as good as if it had dropped in Raid? Probably not, if I'm 100% completely honest, but did I care? Do I look like I care? Look at these awesome badass shoulders, peasants. No, I don't care. Other things you could buy on the Remix vendors, though, were the Siege of Orgrimmar Garrosh heirlooms, items that had not been available in-game since Warlord of Draenor first launched, items that in modern WoW discourse would be described as FOMO items, as in if you weren't playing the game at the time and if you didn't do what you needed to do to get them at the time, then tough titty noob, there's simply no way that you'd ever be able to get hold of those sweet spiky transmogs ever again. Walking around with this bad boy therefore being a very clear and obvious way of not just identifying an in-game achievement for a player, but also the period of time during which that achievement happened. This is also what we refer to sometimes as a prestige award, and WoW is full of them. One of the earliest and most obvious being the Scarab Lord title and mount, something that only players who were there in person at the opening of the gates of Anchorage in vanilla can possibly have. Or, maybe when Blizzard accidentally opened a bunch of new servers in Wrath with the gates closed. A few people got their title then, but frankly, that's still impressive to me. A more everyday example would be the seasonal elite PvP tier set recolors and mounts. Those are attainable in-game for just a few months before becoming something that just sits around in your transmog sets tab, mocking your inability to ever complete it forever. Another famous example would be the Mists of Pandaria challenge mode sets, which Blizzard didn't add to the Remix vendors. That's right, when I said that every transmog from the expansion was available to buy during the event, I wasn't actually being completely honest, because Blizz decided that these transmogs, awarded to players who completed the Mist Challenge Mode dungeons during the original expansion itself, were more special than the Tusks of Manaroth, more special than the legendary cloak appearances, more special than the heirlooms, and would not be made available again. And Blizzard didn't offer any kind of defense or justification of this decision beyond they were only available during the original expansion itself. They won't be available in Remix. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, but Tally, the heirlooms and legendary cloak appearances were also only available during the OG expansion. And I bought every single one of those bad boys from a vendor with my piles of filthy bronze. And you're right, in fact, confusingly, in early interviews, devs had originally said that heirlooms would, like the challenge mode sets, specifically not be available in Remix. A decision they obviously went back on. But the challenge sets remain something they clearly felt players should not be able to ever enjoy again. Inconsistent? FOMO? Put a pin in those questions for just a second, because with that little history lesson in mind, let's take a look at Legion Remix. Artifacts. Remix Mists of Pandaria was, overall, a massive success. A huge amount of players had a huge amount of fun and got a huge amount of cool stuff. And honestly, when it comes to WoW, that's all of us really want, right? Added to the fact that its appearance in the latter half of Dragonflight Season 4 went a long way towards relieving that traditional end of expansion content drought, it seemed pretty certain that Blizz would repeat the trick in the War Within. And sure enough, the 2025 roadmap featured an intriguing green glow towards the end of the year, which Ian Hazzikostas very quickly all but confirmed was Remix Legion. Legion being largely regarded as probably the best WoW expansion of all time. It's definitely top 3 and would seem to be ideally suited to the Remix formula, mostly because it has absolutely loads of very specific and awkward to get collectibles, which players will relish all being on a vendor with a bronze price. Like, for example, the Class Hall mounts. Have you bothered to complete 3 patches worth of Class Order Hall campaign quests on every single Legion class to get every single one of these class-specific mounts? Well, I have, obviously, because I did it at the time, because like I say, I loved Legion, but honestly, if I hadn't done it at the time, doing it now would seem like a massive pain in the ass, and no, I probably wouldn't bother. Have you unlocked every artifact on every class and completed the Suramar campaign and the Balance of Power, and also got the PvP appearance, and also the secret appearance, and then also the Mage Tower appearance, and then also done all the different things on top of that to unlock all of the different color variants of each one? Well, don't bother now, because when Legion Remix rolls around, you'll almost certainly be able to go shopping to your local Bronze Dragon vendor, hand over some currency, and just have them. And that's nice, isn't it? That's what Remix is all about. Except that is for the aforementioned Mage Tower appearances. And this is where the controversy lies. The Mage Tower. I don't think I'm being controversial when I say that Legion was an absolute banger of an expansion, and the Mage Tower was one of the undoubted highlights of it. Introduced in the otherwise crushingly lackluster 7.2 patch, yeah, I know I just said Legion was a banger, but trust me, you kinda had to be there. It promised players non-scaling, mythic boss level challenges individually tailored to their spec with the ultimate reward at the end, a new, unique class artifact appearance with unlockable recolors that A, would show the world what an absolute baller you were, and B, were incredibly cool. In some cases, otherwise completely uniquely cool. When Mage Tower launched, the Protection Warrior and Paladin appearances were quite literally the only functioning flail models in the entire game, and were until late Shadowlands, or actually, because that one did kind of suck, Dragonflight. Likewise, the Werebear was a whole new upright bear form, completely different conceptually from any other in the game. The Disco Cat is quite simply the sparkliest feral have ever been able to make themselves before or since. This was good stuff, but there was a catch, made clear from the start. These appearances were only available during the Legion expansion itself, when the Mage Tower was current content. These rewards, and actually the Mage Tower itself, would disappear for good at the start of the Battle for Azeroth pre-patch, making Mage Tower the very definition of FOMO or prestige content, depending on your point of view. This content was so temporary that you couldn't even play the challenges again after you'd completed them. Like, if you really enjoyed the Discipline challenge and wanted to replay it just for fun, literally, tough titty moron, why would you be able to do that? You've already had your fun and got your staff, what more do you want in a video game? Of course, since these challenges didn't scale, by the time the end of 7.3 rolled around, the fights were a lot more manageable than at launch, and that mad rush to complete all of the challenges for the specs and appearances that you wanted worked for many. including me, to completely eradicate any sense of content drought at the end of Legion. There was no drought for me, I was bopping those things. I got my warrior and paladin flails. I got my disco cat and werebear. I got my Xalatath glow up, because of course I did, because I would do anything for her, seriously anything. I got my discipline staff and then cried myself through 10 pug battleground victories to unlock the hot pink recolor, something I'm still incredibly proud of. I got my lightning ashbringer and my weird paper lantern brewmaster staff and my bony blood DK axe and way more besides. By the time Teldrassil went up, there was only a handful of appearances that I hadn't managed to get, or rather wasn't too fussed about getting. When the Mage Tower was brought back by popular demand in Shadowlands, those weapon appearances were not included. Instead, players could win fun recolors of the Tomb of Sargeras sets and a legit, very cool flying book mount for completing all of the different challenges, which was fine. It was awesome that the challenges themselves were enjoyable again to everyone, but the rewards were a definite downgrade. There is, quite simply, no better and more tantalizing reward in the entire game, worldofwarcraft.com, than a spec-specific, unique weapon appearance. And that is just a fact. Seriously, I will do any old bullshit content you like, Ian. You put a unique spec-specific weapon appearance at the end of it, I will gulp that shit down and then thank you for it afterwards, okay? So naturally, when Legion Remix became a future reality, the #1 request from basically everyone was, please make these things available again during the event. And no, that's not going to happen, no. Many times throughout the history of World of Warcraft, there have been items, titles, and other kinds of rewards that belong in a category of the most prestigious and historic accomplishments. Rewards that we believe should be preserved in a historical context for only those players who earned them at the time. As we've explored the full list of all rewards that players could earn when Legion was current content, we've determined that some fit the description above and will not be obtainable in Legion Remix. Artifact weapon appearances from PvP, seasonal PvP gear, Mage Tower artifact appearances. And you know, that was a shit show, obviously. Dead on arrival. No reason to play then. Blizzard farming elves. Literally garbage company. Imagine keep pushing for FOMO. Literally so dumb. Cool, man. The only achievement you have with these is being old. Dinosaur-aged person. I'm not adding to your metrics by playing this worthless trash. Us players need to friggin' riot and be as loud as possible. This isn't preservation. It's gatekeeping. It's the same toxic, elitist mindset we see in the real world. The 1% hoarding wealth and opportunity while telling everyone else to work harder or be grateful for scraps. The devs already had their shot at earning these rewards when the content was live, and I bet they can get the appearances just for working there. Why shouldn't newer or returning players have a fair chance to prove themselves now? Yeah, fair to say people are disappointed. But should they be? Are Blizzard's reasons for keeping those appearances walled off proper? Do they genuinely preserve something in the game, or is this just a wildly obstinate and inconsistent stance that they're taking? The easiest part of that question to answer is probably the last bit, because yes, objectively, it is inconsistent. If we really are preserving rewards in a historical context for players who earned them at the time, then it makes sense that the Mage Tower artifacts do remain locked off, just like the ahead of the curve Warwolf from Mists of Pandaria. This was rewarded for completing the raid on heroic difficulty while it was current content, and became unavailable after that. As such, it was one of the few items from that expansion not available to players in Mists of Pandaria Remix, alongside the challenge mode sets. Sounds good, makes sense. But then why is the Violet Spellwing being made available in Legion Remix? This is also an ahead of the curve mount for completing the Antorus raid before the release of patch 8.0. Actually, the exact same cutoff as the Mage Tower appearances. So why aren't we preserving that historical context for players who earned them at the time? Come on, Blizz, heroic ahead of the curve mounts are pretty much all I've got. Don't dick me on the heroic ahead of the curve mounts. And yeah, okay, so Heroic was the highest possible level of play in Pandaria raiding, and it's not in Legion since Mythic difficulty became a thing. So technically, these mounts don't represent the same challenge or level of play, even though the achievement has the same name, but it still just feels odd. Another inconsistency, Blizzard have made the Mage Tower werebear available again. Ever since the Mage Tower 2.0 was introduced in Shadowlands, defeating Cruel on your Guardian Demon Druid will award you the Fell Werebear appearance. And okay, so it's a different color to the OG Mage Tower bears, but I'm gonna let you into a little secret here, Blizz, okay? No one gives a shit about the colors. Actually, I do really like the hot pink disc stuff. Okay, the colors aren't people's main concern when it comes to the artifact appearances. The thing that makes the werebear special is the fact it's a werebear. And before this green glowy boy, the other werebear models in the game were disappeared with Mage Tower 1.0. Likewise, the Paladin and Warrior flails. So yes, in my opinion, it is inconsistent the way Blizz are enacting their philosophy here. A more prickly problem, though, is whether their philosophy is a good one in the first place. I have some pretty strong views on this, some of which I think are going to surprise you. But first, Evie wants to tell you something.
Hey team, Gamescom is quickly approaching, and that means two things. One, finally getting to meet some of our long-term viewers in person, and two, having to spell our names to any new people we meet. Thankfully, Squarespace has my back here by hosting our website and our easy-to-remember domain at tnd.tv, and for sponsoring this video, thanks guys. In addition to having tne.tv, we've also had taliesinandevitel.com parked for ages, mostly to keep weirdos from doing weird things with it. And do you know where we got that domain from? You guessed it, Squarespace. This is the future. You can buy and manage domains, or TLDs as they're known in the biz, directly through Squarespace. It's convenient, often pretty cheap, and comes with loads of protections built in. Now, while I am a Squarespace enthusiast and expert of sorts, I still have some gaps in my knowledge, namely around URLs or TLDs or whatever they're called. Thankfully, the Squarespace Help Center has the answer to all of your burning questions, and I found the solution to mine pretty quickly. Putting my new knowledge into practice was also a breeze, thanks to how simple domain management is. I mean, there's literally just a big button that says connect existing website, and after a couple of confirmations, my old URL/TLD/whatever and my shiny existing website are now linked. Easy. Now I know what you're thinking. You're thinking about the maximum number of domains that can be linked to a single website. Me too. Head to squarespace.com/taliesindevitel where you can find out, and where you can get 10% off your first purchase of a Squarespace website or domain. That's squarespace.com/taliesindevitel. The answer is unlimited. Do with that what you will. I know I will.
Prestige versus FOMO. First up, I'm going to say something that I think most of you aren't going to like. As a general concept, I think that in a long-running multiplayer perpetual game world like WoW, there is a value in rewards and items, titles, mounts, whatever, that are available for only a limited time and which are recognizable, not just for an achievement in-game, but also for the time frame that achievement comes from. Going back to that most obvious example, I think the Scarab Lord title is cool. I think it's meaningful, and clearly, I am not the only one. It's not unusual to see people start whole Reddit threads when they see a Scarab Lord out in the wild in retail, because it's an unusual and exciting thing to happen. Not to the person who has the title, importantly, but to the player that saw them in-game. I think World of Warcraft would be a poorer, less interesting game without the Scarab Lord title being something that you just can't get anymore. So by definition, I disagree with the common take of all things should be available to all players without any time limits. And I actually feel pretty similarly about other things that follow the same concept. I think ahead of the curve and cutting edge mounts are pretty cool. And I think that the time limited nature of them can really increase the enjoyment of players in getting them. A great example of that is the Moose mount that was a reward for getting ahead of the curve Archimond at the end of Warlords of Draenor, and the Friendship Moose movement that started because of it, where whole communities were formed around helping players that wouldn't usually be able to get ahead of the curve bag that beautiful horny chappie. Communities that wouldn't have formed if the Moose mount was just a standard heroic mount that everyone knew they could come and loot solo a couple of expansions down the line. And I think communities and the feeling of accomplishment that you get from tackling aspirational content are good things. I would even go as far as to say that they are fundamental parts of the game, and time-limited rewards are really good at inspiring people into content and ways of playing the game that they otherwise wouldn't engage with. A great example, PvP, the War River Beast reward in Season 1 of BFA just really spoke to me for some unknown reason, and so I did a whole season of 3s with my buddies to get my first ever vicious mount. I had an unexpectedly brilliant time, and I got the most perfect round roly-poly bouncy boy to show for my efforts, which beyond that PvP season was completely unavailable again for a good 2 expansions and made me feel very special indeed. Likewise, the Brutosaur Gold Sync mount. I didn't really care about that until Blizzard decided it would become unavailable after the expansion, and then I wanted it more than anything in the entire world. So I got really into gold making and had fun and felt very proud of myself when I spent, sorry, I still feel a little bit sick saying it, 5 million gold on it. So yeah, no shit. I feel good when I have a reward that isn't available anymore. But like those excited Reddit posters sharing their screenshots of a real-life Scarab Lord hanging out in Dornagor, I think it's cool when I just see someone with them too. My first ever experience realizing that there was stuff in WoW that I would never be able to get was when I saw a Warlock in town one day wearing the Horns of the Betrayer, the absolute most baller helm any Warlock could ever possibly own, and which looked so cool, I literally stopped what I was doing and opened Wowhead to learn where I could get such a mean-ass hat, only to discover that it was part of that Miss of Pandaria challenge mode set that I would never be able to get for myself, ever. I was gutted, obviously, but I do also remember feeling that it was kind of pretty cool too, honestly. And then I dressed my Warlock in the Blackrock Foundry set instead, which is equally baller anyway. So from these last few minutes of me yapping, you might well have come to the conclusion that I am completely in favor of items being what we would term FOMO, and only being available for players that were lucky enough to be playing at the time they were available and motivated and skilled enough to get them. And you're right, that's exactly how I feel. For items that I don't have. And this is so weird and kind of the exact inverse of what you'd expect, and I know it's not rational, but I'm sharing it with you here because it's genuinely how I feel, and I'm sure that at least some of you will feel the same way and maybe be able to explain what on earth is going on psychologically here. But that position I have of championing items becoming unavailable and cool recognized symbols of past achievements, that only applies to stuff that I don't have. Like that cool Warlock hat, I don't have it. So it's cool and good that it's not available anymore. That's neat. The Scarab Lord title, I don't have that. So I am totally in favor of it never becoming available again. Every single elite PvP set in the history of the game, sets that are like the tier set that I have, but oftentimes in a much cooler color, well, I don't have them. So yeah, great. I totally think they should stay unavailable so the people that do have them can feel baller. But the weird thing is, this unpopular stance does not apply to items I do have. So all of those ahead of the curve mounts I have, including the Violet Spellwing, make them available to everybody. Who cares? My Brutosaur? Give it away with breakfast cereal if it will make people happy. I don't mind. The Mage Tower artifact appearances? Bring those bad boys back in Legion Remix. Obviously, no brainer. I've had 7 years to enjoy those and feel special. It's time to let everyone buy them from a friendly dragon. When it's stuff I personally have, I am 100% in the camp of all stuff that I have should be available to anyone that isn't me at all times. And what's crazy about that is that, yes, in this case, it puts me firmly in the camp of people that think all the Mage Tower weapons should be available in Remix. But also, I'm fully aware that if I hadn't got them all first time round, if I was sitting here now without any of those appearances, I might well be arguing in this video that we shouldn't be able to get them again. And actually, Blizzard were absolutely right, actually. I accept my brain is probably broken and I need help, so I don't know, please send me money, that'll probably help. As with all things, I think there is a balance to be struck between having the odd item here and there which does retain meaning by not being available anymore, and the flip side of giving players the fun of getting all the stuff ever, because getting stuff is fun. Just look at how popular the Collector's Bounty buff was this month. People love getting stuff, and they would overwhelmingly love getting the Mage Tower artifacts. So, as someone who will always tend to favor the option that will make people more happy to play the game, that's the side I'm always going to come down on here too. Of course, there's also, in my opinion, an extremely obvious answer to this mess that would keep 99% of all players happy that I alluded to much earlier when we talked about the werebear. Just bring back recolors of the Mage Tower weapons. Like I say, it's the models that most people covet more than the color schemes. Just give us a new shade or two of Disco Cat for remix. Give us a new hue of Paper Lantern. Give us another Werebear. Give us 200 new color variants of Xalatath because she's worth it. Not only would that be a way for players who weren't around in Legion to get all those appearances without breaking Blizzard's stated philosophy, but it would be better for players who do have the appearances like me, since there's now a reason to go out and have fun getting them all over again, because these new ones are variants that I don't have. I wonder how long it's going to take me to get this video finished, honestly, because there's a part of me that fully expects Blizzard to go down this path, and it would be pretty typical if they announced it just as I was doing the edit, or more likely, about an hour after I released the video. But what do you think? Is the game better for having items that players can't get anymore, or should everything always be available for everyone forever? And also, does anyone else share my weird psychological mess of being in favor of keeping items exclusive only when I don't personally have them? I want to hear all your opinions in the comments below, but especially if you share that one, because now I've said it out loud, I do feel a little bit insane actually. But whatever your view, thank you for joining us today. If you like this video, don't thank us, thank our patrons who give us their actual real life money to make all of our work happen. And patrons, seriously, sincerely, thank you, because without you, there would be a whole lot less Taliesin and Evertel. If you didn't like it, downvote the shit out of it. Remember, my name is Sean. No, my name is Taliesin from me and Evertel too. Until next time, cheerio.